Let's talk about housing affordability. Housing unaffordability nearing a worst ever level. And our the federal government seems to be doing everything they can to fix the problem. At least that's what they say. They're throwing everything but the kitchen sink at the problem, trying to get more young people into homes. But some of the measures, particularly home buyer savings plans, might be having the opposite effect. Let's find out more. Robert McLister joins us, mortgage strategist. He's on the line. Robert, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Elias, good to be on.
So let's talk about all of these plans, programs that have been done by the current federal government, the Liberals, and why they may not be working as intended. What do you say?
Well, there's three ways that young buyers can save for a home using government tax advantage plans. You got the RSP home buyers plan, the tax-free savings account, and the first home savings account. And, these plans are a great way to sock away money for a new home and get tax breaks. But they don't do what the government would want you to think they do. And that is, they don't make home buying more affordable. In fact, they do the exact opposite because they help more people buy a home.
Okay, right? And part of the issue in our current market is that there is too much demand. Is that what you'd say?
Yeah, too many buyers, not enough homes.
So what should be the course of action then?
Well, listen, like I said, these plans are a great way to save yourself some taxes, to put money away, to grow that money on a tax-free or tax-deferred basis. So, I encourage folks to use them, regardless of whether or not they're good for housing affordability, because you got to take care of yourself first. And so, hey, listen, I just think you have to be realistic about, the impact that these plans are having on the housing market and home prices.
What are you hearing about the First Home Savings Account, the FHSA? What are you hearing about that program and about specifically how much Canadians are using it right now?
It's very popular. And so, the great thing about that is, you can put money away and get the tax deduction. Then you can pull it out and not pay money on those taxes if you're a first-time buyer buying a home. It's a fantastic program from an individual standpoint. Now, did Canada need that program? Did Canada need to subsidize home buying when we got a supply crisis? That's a whole different discussion.
When it comes to that first home savings account, and you get the tax advantage both putting it in, you get the tax advantage pulling it out there. Do you have to use it on a home, or can it be used for just regular old savings?
So I'm going to defer to a tax expert. I don't know that for sure. I know that on the RSP home buyers plan, you can use it for something other than a home, but my understanding was that you had to use it for a home, but don't quote me on that. So
now they've supersized that RSP home buyers plan. It's supersized in various ways. The dollar signs, the time to pay it back, that kind of thing. What is your take on that? Those specific changes that were recently made?
Well, you get another $25,000 that you can pull out of the plan to buy a home, and so again, it creates more opportunity for folks, especially those folks who have maybe the contribution room and have well-off parents that can route money through that program and give them the tax break and let it accumulate a return on a tax deferred basis for a while. So again, from an individual standpoint, taking advantage of that is a good idea if you can. It just doesn't make, housing more affordable in Canada.
We're with mortgage strategist Robert McLister. Robert, let me make you the finance minister. Take out Chrystia Freeland. Let's put you in her place. What would be the policies? What would be your policy to make housing more affordable in this country?
You need more houses. And you also need to throttle back immigration. Again, immigration is fantastic from an economic standpoint, from social standpoint, but you need to throttle it back for a period of time until housing can catch up. We need to literally double home building to keep pace with the constant population increase, which is being driven the vast majority of which is being driven by immigration. So it's just it's creating huge imbalances, which is creating financial risk for individuals, risk for the system, economic risk because people are shoveling money into the housing sector instead of putting it towards other productive uses.
When it comes to housing, Canada is not just one block. Montreal is not Vancouver. Calgary is not Toronto, and the list goes on and on. But there are certain markets that we can look at and say, oh, they are ahead of the curve. What's happening there right now will happen in other places just a little bit later. What are the regions, the parts of the country that you look at right now that give the rest of the country an indication of where we're headed?
Well, I look at a bunch and kind of take a composite. But, the real action, so to speak, is in Toronto and Vancouver in terms of, that's where the majority of speculators are. That's where the majority of, investor interest and just the population growth. You have masses coming in from other countries that are settling in, the Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. So those are the regions where you kind of want to watch prices because the turnover's high and there's a lot of transactions and you can see trends develop quicker. And, there is definite strength in those markets right now, despite, record unaffordability.
If you had a crystal ball, you have to have the outlook here, and we do this interview in a year's time. Where do you think we will be in a year?
Well, assuming that inflation doesn't rear its ugly head again, and we, get above 3 or 4% inflation a year from now, then rates should come down, and that's just going to add more fuel to the fire because the builders aren't going to be able to catch up to demand, and there's so much demand waiting on the sidelines, just waiting for those rates to come down. So 1 year from now, my prediction is that home prices are materially higher.
And you mentioned speculators before, Robert. How are they doing right now? And if prices are if you think they're gonna keep getting higher, how do you think they will do that? Those speculators in that part of the market.
Investors are smart. They buy when they can cash flow, and also when they sense that there's good opportunity for capital appreciation. We're still buying homes on sale here in many markets. They're down in many markets. I mean, some Alberta markets are an exception, but we're down significantly still from the highs, and people know that this supply and demand imbalance persists, and it's not going to get better anytime soon, regardless of what the government tells you, because you can see it. You can see that they're not building enough homes in Canada still, despite all these incentives. So it's going to take a little while. Eventually your supply is going to catch up. But if you're an investor and you see a property that is significantly on sale in an area where there's positive net migration, and you can get good rents. You got to remember, rent growth is at insane highs, over 8% a year on a national basis. So there's pockets of opportunity for investors, and the investors are often the first people in. They're the folks that help that market turn around and those prices bottom out and go up.
Robert, we got to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time.
Always a pleasure.
That's Robert McLister, mortgage strategist.